Welcome back to Girl Take the Lead, the podcast where we explore the real, raw, and remarkable stories of people breaking cycles, finding their voice, and leading with courage. And I'm your host, Yo Canny. If you're listening to this in December while juggling holiday magic, family expectations, endless lists, and maybe an elf on the shelf, you definitely forgot to move. Then today's conversation is arriving at exactly the right moment. I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Denise Brown, also known as the Fairy God Doctor, a Stanford-trained physician, former CEO, wife, mom, and now author of the Fairy God Doctor's Guide to a Good Life, a prescription for the working woman. Denise is someone who has lived many lives inside one: doctor, executive, leader, partner, parent, and now storyteller. And she's here to help us rethink the myth of having it all by revealing what actually matters when the markers of success fall away and satisfaction finally steps forward. In this episode, we explore why success is external, but satisfaction is internal, how comparison and shoulds drain our joy, and why asking for partnership, not help, can transform how supported we feel at home and at work. Denise also shares her wisdom on non-linear careers. While life isn't a ladder, but a wandering, curious path through the woods. And then we get emotional. Denise reads the beautiful poem, If I Had My Child to Raise Over Again, a moment that brought both of us to tears and reminds us what true self-care looks like when the house finally becomes quiet and you realize what really mattered most. This conversation is grounding, liberating, honest, and so needed, especially during the season when many of us are carrying more than we realize. Let's jump in. Here you go. Denise, welcome to Girl Take the Lead. We're going to have such a great time talking about your book.
I'm excited.
Why don't we start first if you want to introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners?
Great. My name's Dr. Denise Brown. I'm the Fairy God Doctor. I've been a physician, an executive, a mom, a wife, all of the things all at once. And I wrote a book to kind of share what I've learned, to shortcut everybody to kind of living what they would define as their good life.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about the book.
I had a start with my career started off reasonably traditionally. I went to medical school, residency, started working, did my thing, ran a practice, had a couple kids along the way, tried to make it creatively work for me, which was great. Ultimately rolled my practice into a larger physician practice, ended up getting involved with the leadership of that, grew that really big, and then actually sort of got recruited by a private equity company to go run a different organization as the CEO, healthcare still related, and sold that in 2023. So that's literally like 30 years of my career condensed hopefully into a sentence. But after we sold the company, I was kind of decided for the first time ever to take a break. I had never, ever in my whole life taken a break. And I got bored after about 6 weeks. And so somebody said, well, you should write a book. And I was like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. Maybe I should. And so after chatting to a few more people, I was like, well, the universe is trying to tell me something. Maybe I should write some of this stuff down. So that's
There you
what
go. That's what's going on. So you cover a topic, and I guess given your background, chasing success or embracing satisfaction. So did you kind of have some insights about that based on all of these different roles you've had?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard as a younger person to kind of figure out the difference because we're told very early on, whether we're in high school or we're applying to college or whatever, it's very externally driven. You got to tick these boxes. What's your class rank? What's your SAT score? Where did you go to school? What sorority are you in? What, like all of these different things, very externally driven. And they are all markers of success. They make you feel good. You're like, oh, look at me. It's very ego driven. Doesn't always make you feel great though, kind of quietly down deep inside. And I think, the one thing I would say as I've gotten older and then, things happen to you in life and that are wake up calls, if you will, you start to realize that all of those little tick boxes and the atta girls and atta boys maybe don't actually matter as much as, what makes me feel good, what makes other people feel better. And so you start to kind of get in touch with the things that actually really matter to you instead of what the universe or Instagram or TikTok have sort of told you should matter, you know? And I think that's the big difference. And so, everybody comes to it in their own way. But ultimately, like one of the many gifts of menopause, I would say, is I now know that all that really matters is my own personal satisfaction. Like, how do I feel about this? Do I even care? That's really, at the end of the day, what matters. So how can we help sort of younger folks get to that place more quickly in their journeys? And that's really the idea behind the Fairy God Doctor's Guide. Because I think ultimately success is external, satisfaction is internal. Daniel Pink and all the great, sort of social scientists will tell you that intrinsically motivating things are much more lasting. And how can you be honest with yourself and figure out what that is for you?
Yeah. Well, one of the things you have in the book, when you talk about satisfaction and perhaps journaling about that, but I love what you included from Brene Brown.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those things where, you want to be living your life, right? You don't want to be living somebody else's version of your life. And I think it's really easy, especially as daughters, especially as oldest daughters, maybe you kind of feel like, oh, I'm supposed to put this persona on. Put on this coat or this armor or whatever. And you do what you think you're supposed to do. But really, the only person you're hurting there is you. So what you really want to do is be brave with your life. And I love how she talks about that, and kind of a reflection of Teddy Roosevelt's, be the man in the arena. Like, go and get out there. No one else can do it for you. No one else can figure this stuff out for you. And you're probably going to get your ass kicked, and that's actually okay.
Yeah.
But you have to figure it out. It cannot be handed to you. You have to be active. And it's easy. And I think COVID made it even easier to kind of, withdraw and wait for things to happen and kind of wait and see. And I'm not sure that sometimes that isn't an okay strategy, but in the end, like Brene says, you can choose courage or you can choose comfort, but you can't have both at the same time. And sometimes it's a time for comfort, but sometimes it's a time for courage.
Yeah. I love, and I know that our listeners love Brene Brown. So
Yeah.
this is
How could
good.
you not?
I know. Okay. I loved the non-linear womanhood. So
Yeah.
cool to think about that. What do you see there?
Well, I think it's interesting. Again, it kind of goes along this concept of success, right? You think that you're on this journey and it's supposed to be like one thing happens and then the next thing happens. And then I
Yeah.
go to college, then I meet someone, then we get married, then I have kids, da 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 da, and it's supposed to be
Yeah.
very, like A and then B and then C and then D. And like, as you get older, it doesn't happen like that. But until you know that it doesn't happen like that, when it suddenly goes, sideways, you're like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, this is a failure. This is a disaster. Oh my goodness. And really what it is just an opportunity to kind of wander off on a different path or a slightly different avenue. And so I really kind of think about, my career really has been sort of a wander in the woods. I mean, if you had asked 27-year-old me just finishing my residency, if 53-year-old me would be doing what I am right now, in a million years, it never would have occurred to me. Like,
Yeah.
first of all, I didn't even think it was possible. But what happened to me along the way was when opportunities presented themselves, I was like, that sounds interesting. Did I have a degree in it? No. Did I know everything about it? Also, no. Did it sound interesting? Was I willing to learn? Okay, yeah, maybe. Let's turn left for a little while, see what happens. And so I think it's more of an openness to exploration, but also recognizing that sometimes things happen to you that seem like they're disasters, but they really are kind of, gifts just kind of hidden,
Yes.
behind a little bit. And if you sort of take that sort of curiosity kind of focused approach to them, things can turn out to be really interesting. And so I kind of talk a lot about my own sort of career path and how I ended up doing things that I wouldn't have anticipated. But also, other ladies who, thought they were going to do, something and start a business and ran it and then suddenly was like, this isn't really what I want right now. I'm going to take time off. I'm going to do something different. And that somehow seems like, oh, you're, compromising yourself. Or, no, I'm just kind of wandering down a different path. And I may come back to where I was, the path I was on before, or I may end up finding a whole new kind of world outside over on this, end
Yeah.
of the forest, if you will. And so I just think it's an openness and a curiosity and a willingness to kind of recognize that these things happen. And if you kind of take them in stride and with grace and, with a little bit of
Yeah.
levity, things usually do work out in a more interesting way than you would have initially planned. So
Yeah. So did you feel that way when you kind of shifted from being physician to administration?
a little bit. I mean, it was a long transition. And that would be the other thing I would say is like if you have the luxury, you get to sort of decide how that works, right? Like
Mhm.
sometimes, you're in a situation and say you get riffed or whatever. I mean, you get the rug pulled out from under you. That's a more, abrupt kind of like veer from the path. In my particular circumstance, I was sort of invited to try something. They were like, well, you have a really successful practice. We think you're onto something. Would you be willing to talk to other people about it? And I was like, sure, that sounds cool. I could sort of explain how I do things and what my rationale is. And it turned out I was pretty good at, helping figure out what was wrong with other physicians' practices, helping them kind of steer into a different way of thinking about how to organize, their shifts and their doctors and all of that. And that ended up being something that I got better and better at the more I did it and got more involved in kind of the business of medicine and how to kind of take a practice in a hospital and not just kind of make them efficient because that seems very factory and gross, but really to like bring happy doctors make happy patients. Like how can you
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
generate that kind of environment? And that's how it started. And then that kind of I ended up weaving a lot of other things into that, ultimately, setting strategic direction for a very large physician practice company and then taking what I learned there kind of into the next level. So like each thing kind of builds on it,
Yeah.
but it's not the same. It's not, people always, I think young folks always think of this career ladder, like it's just this one ladder and you're going to just keep climbing up it, but that's just not how life works.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you're talking about it, like take some side steps
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
see where that takes you. That was always my design, my career design, just to
Yeah.
keep, I needed to keep myself interested
Well,
anyway.
and
So,
I think you're right. I also think there's a life cycle, right? Where I mean,
yeah.
they talk about the 7-year itch and, people talk about it in marriages, but I think it's actually probably more accurate in jobs where,
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of people move around more than maybe they used to, but so maybe it's not the job, maybe it's the skill set and what you kind of
Yeah.
where you're at and whether it's at this company A or company B, it doesn't matter. But I do think that at some point you start to get stagnant if you keep
Yeah.
doing the same thing. And so again, the world is a very interesting place and you should always be kind of learning new things and seeing what
Yeah.
works.
Well, you talk a little bit too. I guess it comes back to satisfaction about comparison
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then it can become a toxic cycle.
Oh God. I mean, just the worst, right? I mean, when comparison, judgment, and guilt kind of all go together. And then, sitting right in the middle of that is shame because
Hmm.
it never makes you feel good. But
That's a wonderful
I mean,
description.
it's just like, oh, so gross. And comparison's so easy, especially today when you can, kind of see the pictures of everybody's vacation or whatever, you start thinking, oh gosh, I should be doing this. And quickly you look at these pictures and the response isn't, oh, isn't that nice? Yolanda went on a cool vacation. It's, I should be going on a cooler vacation. You know, like
Yeah.
immediately the
Yeah.
word should comes into like your self
Mhm.
dialogue. And it like, uh-oh, like your wheels on the wagon are already, you know, getting loose because you start getting into this kind of almost like competitive, you know,
Yeah.
anxiety about stuff. And then what does that lead to really quickly? Judging other people's choices. I don't understand how she went on that vacation. I mean, didn't you hear that she just, you know, like, and then you're like, who is this person? Like, what, you know, why am I talking like this? This is horrible. And so what do you end up doing? You feel guilty about,
Yeah.
you know, it,
Yeah.
or you feel guilty about your choices, or you sort of are like, oh, I should never have taken that job. I should have done, you know, again, should. They're just coming at you all
Yeah.
over the place. And, you know, what that ultimately means is, you know, you just sort of are looking at your life with dissatisfaction, with just
Yeah.
this kind of like, ugh. And I think it's Seneca. It's like one of my favorite, like of the Stoics quotes, you know, like a rich man wants what he has.
Mhm.
That's
Beautiful.
all, you know, like you're like, whoo, got me there. Um, and that comparison will take that away. I mean, it really is the thief of joy. And so I think it's really easy, particularly when parenting,
Yeah.
to get caught up in that.
Yeah. 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 Definitely.
Yeah,
Well, because I think we're so unsure of how to parent. We don't get a manual. No one tells us how to do it. So you're looking like, well, what is that person doing or how did they're doing it?
yeah,
And it's hard to just say, oh, I'm good enough
yeah.
when
Well,
it comes to that.
I read some article not too long ago. I can't remember if it was Wall Street Journal or I don't know. Anyway, it was like the latchkey kids of Gen X, you know, raised the sort of helicopter parents of,
Uh-huh.
you know, and we're like, oh God, we really did. I mean, I let myself into the house. I mean, my mom came home like an hour and a half later, you know, but like we sort of did stuff on our own, and for some people that was great. For other people, it was probably very lonely, and you know, and so people want to kind of do it differently. And so I think, you know, the helicoptering and the snow plowing stuff, it just is, it's really easy to think that that's what you're supposed to do because you
Yeah.
see everybody
Yeah.
else around you doing it.
Yeah.
And then it makes it really hard to step out of that, to
Yeah.
be the one, you know, dolphin who's swimming not with the pod. And I talk a lot about that in the book because, you know, you've got to find your sort of ally, whether it's at work or it's at school, you know, if you are raising kids, whatever, who you have kind of a similar take on stuff. Because otherwise you end up going with this sort of weird, like groupthink, go
Yeah.
with the flow garbage. And before you know it, you're like, apparently I have to spend like $5,000 on my kid's birthday because my 3-year-old won't be happy without a balloon arch. You know, like 3-year-old doesn't even know what a balloon arch is, you know, but you feel like you've got to do it because everybody else is doing it. And so
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting because now my kids have just gone off to college. And I think helicoptering is easy to notice and pull back on. What's even more insidious is the snowplow, where you're kind of just making sure that their lives are easy and, you know, oh, you don't want them to, you know, and it seems loving
Yeah.
because of course nobody wants your child to be upset, you know, like nobody wants that. But boy, they should really probably figure out how to deal with their own emotions, you know, or figure out how to work the washing
Yeah.
machine because someday they leave. And then, oh my God, now what? You know, so it's
Yeah.
really fun to watch this sort of like, I mean, my youngest one, you know, just went to college this fall and, you know, talking with these other parents about, oh, well, they didn't know how to do this. And they didn't, and I'm like, well, whose fault is that? Not his, you know. Anyway, it's funny.
Sometimes I'll find something in my like watching my daughters, they're one is 30 and the other one is like 27 and I'll watch them and I'll go, "Oh my God, that's a gap that I didn't, like
There's a lesson
in
in the
their
book I
motherhood."
forgot.
Like she went to use the hose and she didn't know how to use her thumb to make the water spurt longer. And I went, "Oh my God, a gap. I found a gap. Let me
You
show
know,
you how to do that."
it's funny though,
Um,
because I think the
yeah.
snowplow and the helicopter stuff, you know, we talk about it in and around parenting, but it actually really applies a lot to work, especially if you're a manager of people, right? And
Ah, great,
so
great
you think
insight.
that you're going to be a good manager by like checking in. How are you doing? How's the project going? You know, but like as the recipient of that, what I'm hearing you tell me without telling me is that you don't trust me to complete the tasks
Yeah.
assign me, and that you don't trust my judgment. And so what that ends up doing is just like demoralizing me. So it's like, well, then why bother? Why? I mean, like,
Yeah.
if you're just going to tell me how to do it or make me do it over, like I just become more disaffected, and it really doesn't exactly create employee morale. Whereas if you say, this is what needs to happen. This is the time frame in which it needs to happen. Here's
Yeah.
one way you might think about doing it. Check in with me and let me know how it's going.
Yeah.
That's a completely different gift of agency that you've kind of given your employee. You're going to get a heck of a lot more out of that person
Yeah.
in a much more engaged way than being this kind of constant hovering helicopter. So I think sometimes
Yeah.
it's easier for some people to think about it in one, venue versus the other, but the idea is the same. It's well intentioned, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the outcome is like treating people like they can't handle challenges on their own and that
Yeah.
they're incapable. So
Definitely. I can see that.
it's interesting. But it all comes from this comparison kind of nonsense where it starts.
Now, you had an interesting take on help, asking for help
Yeah.
and partnership. And as I read that, I got to tell you, I went, whoa, because I've often thought, especially someone like me, I'm very independent and, let me do it myself. And that I have a difficult time asking for help. And so I went to that. I thought, oh, she's going to talk about how to handle asking for help, but that isn't what you talked about. You got to talk about this because it's a little bit, it's one of those thought insights that you have that I think are just helping us see other parts to it that we didn't necessarily see.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think it's very interesting because again, you kind of fall into this capable women like to be in control.
Mhm.
We know that there's a best way to do things.
That's right. Just
We can
ask us.
all, here's the deal. We can all agree on that. Um, However, that is not the sort of way to get around best in the world, right? That doesn't bring the greatest utility to your life. Yes, you can always do it yourself, probably right, probably faster, but that is the recipe for burnout, right? You just can't. So my theory is like you can have it all, but you cannot do it all. Period.
Mhm.
So you got to figure out what things really matter to you to do and what things can you sort of relinquish, if you will.
Mhm.
And it's not easy, but it's real. I think words are very powerful, and so like one of the things I talk about, and maybe this is the one where you had your kind of aha moment, is like I it makes my eyeballs want to explode when I hear a parent say to the other parent, I need help with the kids. I'm like, dude, they're your kids. Like, you're not helping me. Like, this is, we are in this together. Like, hello. So like you can share resources and outsource stuff, but like that's not, in my mind, what you should be doing with your children. Like your husband isn't babysitting or whatever. Like we are collectively taking care of our children. And I we go around and around about it because I don't outsource to my spouse. I work together,
Mhm.
with him.
Mhm.
Now, there may be tasks that he does and tasks that I do, but we've kind of predetermined what those are. Like I don't do the trash. I don't like the
Mhm.
trash at all. He doesn't do grocery shopping. That's fine. We understand like where we're coming from. But
Right.
I mean, I suppose if I was like, hey, do you want to come to the store with me? That would be fine. But I would never ask him to help me, do the grocery shopping. So I feel like our partners are our teammates, not our
Mm.
delegates. But I think there's tremendous opportunity to kind of find resources and share them out in the world. And that's where I really think the kind of help comes in. And that's in the help that you can find in creating community now. And that might be in and around kids, might be at work. I mean, it kind of applies sort of anywhere, but most of the time, we are all struggling with the same kinds of things. Like for me,
Mhm.
trying to figure out what to cook for dinner is, I mean, it's the most maddening thing ever. Like it drives me crazy. Like I have decision fatigue at the end of the day. I've been making, decisions
Yeah.
all day.
Yeah.
Like the last thing I want to do is figure out what to make for dinner. And like, yes, I know meal planning and prep and all this stuff, but like what I made on Sunday is probably not what I'm in the mood for on Tuesday. Like I have literally tried every strategy possible. You'll go broke if you're door dashing every night, right? You can't do that.
Right.
But you can come up with alternative ways to like kind of take the load off and share the load with other people. And so I talk a lot about my supper co-op that we kind of generated in our neighborhood, which came from frustration where I was just like, I just can't do this. And my neighbor was literally like, oh my God, me neither. And I was like, well, what day do you have off? She's like, oh, I don't work on Mondays. I'm like, oh, I don't work on Tuesdays because I volunteer at the kids' school. And then you could see the lights kind of go off in our eyes. I'm like, all right, well, what if you cooked on Monday and I cooked on Tuesday? We'll get Steph to cook on Wednesday, and then we can all just cook once and eat 3 different dinners. So it was like I made dinner for everyone on Tuesday. Jenny made dinner everyone, and like we would deliver the dinner. You could sit and visit if you had time, but otherwise you didn't have to. And it was done. And I didn't have to think about what it was, and it was fine. And it was like, oh. And now suddenly I could take my kid to the park because I knew all I had to do was sort of eat and didn't cost me a cent. So like
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
those are the kinds of things that we need to be a little bit more creative about. I mean, it was one thing when we did live in a village and maybe there were multiple generations of, our families all kind of coexisting, but that's not how the world
Well,
works anymore.
what my takeaway after reading it was that you were saying by asking for help, you are still retaining that it's your responsibility and
Yes.
your job.
Yes.
Where if you're asking for partnership,
Yes.
you're shifting it to being about the community
Yep.
and bigger than,
Yeah.
and it's no longer your responsibility.
Yes. And I think it takes that kind of
Burden off. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
weight that you carry. And I think the other thing is like we pick up stuff unintentionally or
Yeah.
unconsciously. And now we're suddenly shouldering all of that, whether it's, oh, I volunteered for some stupid thing at work, or I volunteered for this thing at school, or now all of a sudden I got to like do the orange slices for soccer practice and
I
you know,
know. I remember
yeah, I
those
mean,
things.
we've all been there. Like, shit, today's my snack day. And oh God, what am I going to do? So you end up kind of putting all of that sort of on
Uh-huh.
you. And then if you're sort of asking for help with that, you're still carrying it. If you
Yeah.
ask for partnership, now 2 people are carrying it. And
Yeah. It's a
it's a
community.
word that makes a difference in
It
my.
does. It does. It totally did.
Yeah.
So we're going to be posting this during December. And I'm just thinking for our viewers and listeners, they're probably doing a heck of a lot more than they normally do. And self care isn't at the top of the list.
Yeah.
What
Isn't
are
that?
some thoughts you have there that you would pass along to these beautiful people who are listening right now
Yeah.
and get them through this?
Yeah. Well, all that sort of, the days are long, but the years are short. I mean, it really is the truth. And I think particularly as women, we have this sort of sense that we're supposed to make the holidays this most magical time, which usually, I mean, I don't know about you, but usually or often ended up with me, like crying alone in front of the Christmas tree late on Christmas Eve. Because I'm number one, emotionally exhausted, physically drained, and just like missing my mom or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, well, what if there was a different way? Like, there's got to be a different way. And so I think, again, all of this stuff that we pick up unconsciously that we think, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to make this magic party. We're going to do, this caroling thing. Oh, and we're also going to bake cookies. And we're, like
Yeah.
2 of them. You don't have to do everything. I promise you, your kid won't remember if you moved the elf or not. I mean, maybe he remembers tomorrow, but he sure as heck won't remember 2 years from now. So like, just like ease the burden. I was so excited when the elf finally, he moved away. He had to go somewhere else. We just put this like insane pressure on ourselves for really no reason. If instead we flipped it around and said, okay, well, what are the things that actually do? Maybe making cookies makes you happy. Like, I can't think of anything I'd rather do less. Like, I 100% cannot. But if it makes you happy, then that's great. If you think you're supposed to do it, stop right now.
Yeah.
And I think that those are the, and like only you can decide. Like, does it actually bring me joy? Then if yes, great. If it doesn't actually bring me joy, but I think somehow in some magical fairyland they told me I was supposed to do this, then maybe we skip that one. Maybe
Yeah.
we don't have
Yeah.
to go ice skating and have a hot chocolate bar and have the, just stop. Um, the other thing I think about is this is a great time to sort of pony up with your friends, right? Like
Mm,
maybe you like making cookies and I like doing a hot chocolate bar. Let's partner up on that.
yeah.
The other thing I think is always, fraught around the holidays is, then you throw the kind of wild card of other family members into, the insanity and things can
Complexity.
go sideways quickly. And so this is where the whole kind of like control issue really comes up and I think can be very difficult to deal with, or it cannot be difficult to deal with, but you
Mhm.
get to decide. And so I talk in the book about the way my husband folds towels, which is just wrong, but also the towels get folded. So, like, does it really matter if they're not folded in thirds and put, like, if your mother in law puts the dishes away, not quite in the right spot, but the dishwasher got emptied? Do we need to complain about how it got done? Or do we just need to say, thanks for emptying the dishwasher? Like,
Yeah.
does it really matter? Like, is it the outcome or is it the process? Like, decide what actually matters to you. And like, I think we end up carrying a lot of this outcome oriented crap, wraps us right back to success at the beginning versus, what was the process? Like, someone was like, oh, she's really busy. I'm going to put away the dishes. That is something that we should be grateful for. Whether they all got, the spatulas got put mixed in with the spoons, not in the way that I did it, who cares?
Yeah. Very good. Okay, listeners, y'all got to remember that one for right now. You know, one of the things I love is when our authors will read a little something and you have a poem, The Heart of Self-Care. Oh my God. I love this. Could you read it for us?
I can't promise you I won't get choked up. I
I
have to
know.
I have to tell you a little bit about this though. So I had Mrs. Oxton, who
Mhm.
she's still teaching at Trinity Presbyterian Nursery School in San Carlos, California, literally one of the greatest places on earth, taught me so much about how to raise an independent, happy child. And this was a poem that was like posted at
Mm,
the nursery school. And I think it's really one of those things where in the moment you want your counters to be clean, you want your house to be tidy, you want all these things. And so you tend, what you want is what you put your focus on, right? But you don't actually want your tidy counters, whatever. You want your people you love to be happy and be satisfied and to want to spend time with you, right? Like that's what you really want. And you don't sort of recognize that when you're telling them like, hold on a second, I just have to wipe the counter down, what the message you're actually saying is, oh, my counter is more important than like sitting and reading another book with you, or and it's one of those things that kind of sneaks up on you. And so I can remember my mother-in-law, when I would be like, oh, these kids are driving me crazy, she would be like, someday your house is going to be really quiet and really clean. And I was like, what is she talking about? Like when you're in the thick of it, you're
yeah,
just
you can't see it.
crazy old lady. Well, guess what? I mean, my kids are now both gone and my house is quiet and it's clean. And I mean, it gets me a little bit. And you
Yeah.
don't know it until it's there. So, like, if you can figure that out faster, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, you don't even have to have kids. Like it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
it's the people in the end that are the
Yeah.
things that matter the most. It's not the stuff. And so that's the idea of, at least for me, what living a fulfilled and satisfied life is, and what really matters. Because it all I've ever wanted to do was raise two happy, independent people who didn't need me, but
Mhm.
wanted to hang out with me sometime.
Mhm. Mm.
That's always been my sort of North Star. And I kind of have gotten that, and it's awesome. But this is the poem. And I'm gonna cry because Will and Hank are both gone. Oh my God. Okay. I'm
I
gonna
know.
cry really hard, but I
I get
probably
to
won't.
cry. I get to
I
cry
don't think
at
I'll
the
be able to
sound.
get through it. But anyway, here it is. Thank you, Gene Oxton. It's called If I Had My Child to Raise Over Again. If I had my child to raise over again, I'd finger paint more and point the finger less. I'd do less correcting and more connecting. I'd take my eyes off my watch or my phone and watch with my eyes. I would care to know less and know to care more. I'd take more hikes and fly more kites. I'd stop playing serious and seriously play. I'd run through more fields and gaze at more stars. I'd do more hugging and less tugging. I would be firm less often and affirm much more. I'd build self-esteem first and the house later. I'd teach less about the love of power and more about the power of love. It matters not whether my child is big or small. From this day forth, I'll cherish it all. I mean, you just have to do your thing and love your people the way only you can. No one else can tell you how to do it. So stop listening to them.
Wow. I love also that you say this about self-care
Yeah.
and self-love.
You can't do it if you're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Period. It just doesn't work, you know? So
Okay, so everybody crying out there right now.
I know, sorry.
Join us in wiping our eyes.
Yeah, I
Oh,
tell you.
so
But
so
I think
beautiful that
that's
you
the
had
whole
it.
idea, right? I mean, it's like,
It
you think
totally
all
is.
this other shit, pardon my French, matters, but it really doesn't in the end.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. So it's emotional care. It's meant, I mean, it's like, it's not just like running out and getting a manicure, which is nice, but it's actually like having a heart to heart with
Yeah.
yourself about what
Yeah.
actually matters and then protecting that ferociously. That's my definition of self-care. And I can't
Love
tell
it.
you what matters to you, but I know what matters to me.
Mhm.
We may be sobbing, but like I will say most of my book is pretty funny, I think, but
Yeah, it is.
because life is actually quite entertaining, right? But like,
Yeah.
but it's so rich, you know, you really want to be able to kind of like embrace all of it. And it's a quick read. It's, you know, it's not very long. If you listen to it, like 1.5 speed, it's like 3 hours. So like you can get your holiday shopping and your wrapping done and, you know,
There
and
you go.
kind of bang it out. But I think it's important. Like, you know, if you look at all the things I've done a lot of the things that you can do. Um, those aren't necessarily the things that matter to me. Now they've put me in a position to be able to do really other interesting things, but the things matter less, and it's the people. And I always used to say, my mom would be like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was like, I just want to make people feel better. I like to make people laugh. Like, and so that's my legacy. Like, I hope I made you feel better today, however it was, whether I was a doctor or I gave you a compliment in the grocery store because I really liked your dress, or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think if we all just sort of went through life, you know, figuring out what makes us smile, like I'm not going to tap dance for you, but I'd like, if I could, to have said, oh, she made me feel better.
Oh, you definitely are doing that. Definitely. So how can our folks find you, follow you, get your book?
Yeah. Well, you know, I will say I'm on all the things. I don't know that I do them necessarily particularly well, but the Fairy God Doctors on Instagram. My personal one is connected to the page too. My personal one's probably more, you know, unhinged in a funny way. Also on LinkedIn. And then my website is Denise S is for Saran Brown MD, and or thefairygoddoctor.com. But you can find the book at like Barnes and Noble, Apple Books, Amazon, and like I said, it's a pretty quick and easy read. I hate those business books where like, oh, the beginning's great and the end is really good, and then the middle you're like, what was happening in here? So I did not want to write a book like that. I wanted it
Yeah,
to like pack a punch and then move on,
you
because
did
life is
that.
short. So
Definitely. So you mentioned something about in your 20s, but looking back now, what would you tell your 20 something self?
well, you know, I kind of had the wool pulled out from under me when my mom died when I was 20. Well, let's see, how was it?
Mm.
I got to back up. I think I was 24, turning 25. Yeah, 24. So that sucked. Was horrible. And I think in a way, I sort of got to jump forward to like kind of learning to care less about all the little things more quickly, maybe than many other people. Um, because I that was just the gift that her death gave me. But if I was going to say something to my even younger self, like my 22-year-old self, it would have been kind of the same. Like, this like being the straight A student, little valedictorian, like nobody cares. It doesn't really matter. Like being a good person, like finding something that,
Mhm.
brings you joy, it makes your heart feel full. Like those are the things that, like I would have told her maybe to worry a little bit less about some of that stuff, the kind of, the successy things. Like I said, my mom's passing kind of fast forward me through a lot of that,
Mhm.
but I still carried a bunch of it with me, kind of as
Mhm.
baggage to, let's see, what else would I tell? Oh, talk to your therapist earlier than you ever thought you needed one. That would be a good one. Um, Grief sucks and it never leaves you. What I mean, there's so many things I would tell, don't cut bangs. Like I have a lot of things that I would tell her. Short hair was not for me. Yeah, but I think really it was that, and I can even remember my mom telling me this as a teenager, and now I really will date myself. Like she would always say, if I could just press fast forward and show you that it's all going to be okay. And
Oh,
and I think that's really true, but like I don't want people to be in a race to get somewhere. Like it's such a fun ride. Like enjoy
yeah.
it. I'm like my college kids are like, oh, I got to do this and I gotta get this internship and I'm like, dude, you gotta be in college, man. It's the best time ever. Like enjoy.
Yeah.
Like today is the only day. I could get hit by a bus later this afternoon, and I would actually be okay with that because I've got no unfinished business. Everyone I care about knows I care. Like
Yeah.
those are the things that I think we all just need to do more of.
Great. So I don't know. Did you get a chance to go to our online store?
I'm going with Snarky Cat.
Which one do you like? The one about listen to yourself,
Yeah, listen to your
intuition?
gut. Like
Yeah.
that is hilarious. Trust your gut, Snarky Cat.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
It's the
very
truth though.
popular.
I mean, you really always almost do know what to do. And I mean, I like to listen to my gut, but then sleep on it. And sometimes
Yeah.
you got to sleep on it more than one night. You got to, I'm a big believer in whenever you're getting ready to kind of make a decision, which we all think it's the decision, but it's really just a decision. Very few
Yeah.
things you can't walk back. Um, your gut almost always knows, but then you got to let it have a little bit of time to kind of rattle around up there, I
It
think.
does.
And,
The
and
same
I
way.
I like to park stuff in there and then literally be like, I am not going to think about that again until Monday. And then
Yeah.
on Monday, I usually wake up and I'm like, oh, well, of course I know what to do. Like you just have to
Yeah.
let your unconscious or subconscious mind, kind of take a lead there because it almost always is right.
Oh, it's been so great talking to you.
You too.
I've really enjoyed it. And I will get this posted for us and get back to
Awesome.
you. But thank you so much for
Oh,
joining
thank
us.
you. Love
Mhm.
it. Yay.
What an extraordinary and heartfelt conversation with Dr. Denise Brown, a woman who has worn many titles in her life, yet continues to return to one that matters most, helping people feel better physically and emotionally. Denise reminds us that while the world teaches us to chase success, the real nourishment comes from satisfaction, from knowing what matters to you and protecting it with intention. She also gives us a powerful reframe for the season. You can have it all, but you cannot do it all, and you don't have to. Whether it was her insight about comparison or her distinction about help and partnership, her reflections on nonlinear womanhood, or the beautiful poem that moved both of us to tears, Denise offers us wisdom that stays with you long after the episode ends. If you'd like to connect with her, make sure you check the show notes for all her detail. Here's 3 takeaways from today's conversation. 1, success is external, satisfaction is internal. The more we align with what truly matters, the more peacefully and powerfully we live. 2, We can have it all, but we can't do it all. Asking for partnership expands our world. Asking for help still keeps the load on our shoulders. And 3, self-care is emotional care. It's not about perfection or productivity. It's about loving your people and yourself with presence, honesty, and joy. As always, thank you for listening, for sharing these conversations, and for being part of a community of women raising their voices and leading with heart. Next week, we'll be joined by Rebecca Faye Smith-Galley, author, columnist, and radiant storyteller whose life has taken her down many unchosen paths. From the loss of her brother and son, to parenting a daughter with autism, to surviving paralysis 9 days after her divorce, Becky writes about love, loss, and healing with remarkable clarity and courage. Her book, Morning Fuel, offers daily reflections that comfort, challenge, and inspire. And she'll be sharing some of that wisdom and some of those readings with us. Until then, take care of your heart, choose satisfaction over success, and remember, we got this. Talk soon. Bye.